Previously on America Divided.
What makes Pinellas so particularly egregious?
The lowest achievement elementary schools. Pinellas has 5.
There's no school you could just go to that's not a D or an F school.
We're talking about schools that are now F and failing schools that were A schools.
The vote was that we would go back to neighborhood schools.
And now you called it neighborhood schools.
Segregated schools.
The segregated schools. Part of the deal was we're going to segregate the schools, but we're going to add resources to supplement that.
We can't get the state audits?
I don't have that information right now.
Did you contact us to?
Yes, we have.
Is there a reason for the hostility that you guys, what's the problem exactly?
Year-old male, unconscious, not breathing. No further.
139, can you put me on the scene?
I just moved the date about 8 months ago, so I don't really know too many people.
So you go to the hospital?
No.
Come on.
Do you use it at all?
I used to a long time ago, but I'm clean. That's why I moved here.
How long was he here before he passed out?
Not even like three to 5 minutes, if that.
When's the last time?
It's been 8 months since I moved here.
How's your arms healing up?
Fine.
Can I see them?
Sure. This one's a scar. Nothing.
Oh, that kind
Oh
of
no, I picked it. It was a pimple.
You know he was dead, right? And they just brought him back.
Hey, Willie.
Yeah.
Right here's the spoon.
He's got the spoon in there. This is not good. You know what can happen right now, right?
I don't know. I didn't see anything.
You trying to get off of heroin, right?
Yes, that's why I moved here.
And if you need some help, I mean, we can get you in the right direction, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right?
For a lot of my adult life, I've been an addict. Alcohol was my drug of choice. 6 years ago, I finally got sober. However, addiction hasn't released its grip on those dearest to me. Back home, a cousin's drug addiction has dragged our family into the painful cycle of abuse, treatment, and relapse. We're not alone. Nearly every day, I see our family's pain reflected in stories and headlines. Hey, how's he doing? And I have to ask, where did this epidemic come from? How has it consumed so many lives? And what does the future hold for addicts like my cousin?
I'm Dr. Mike Vickers. I'm a veterinarian in South Texas, and I'm also chairman of the Texas Border Volunteers. We have these volunteers that are patriots, and we go out on all these trails and watch these trails and report that criminal activity to the Border Patrol. We've encountering people that are desperate, that are lost, that are sick. We found several dead people in here. One of these that we found over there had actually a broken leg. Somebody either beat her up, sexually assaulted her, broke her leg, and left her there. It probably took her 4 or 5 days or a week to die. We have to classify them all together. They're coming here illegally, and we have to draw the line. How we doing?
Everybody here a citizen.
Thank you. I'm here to stay. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to fight, do everything I can to try to help law enforcement in our country shut this border down.
There's so much fear and loathing when it comes to undocumented immigrants. And this campaign season, people from all sides are fired up about the issue.
Build the wall! Mexicans build everything for you!
Of course, there are some bad actors among the indocumentados, just as there are among every group. But how can we lump them all together? The issue of immigration is personal for me. I'm the child of parents who immigrated from Honduras. And I'm interested to know more about the 11 million undocumented people in this country. Who are they? Why have they come? And what is life like for them once they arrive?
It's a system that effectively sweeps millions of poor people into second-class status. Did we invest in those communities? No. Instead, we declared war.
What we have today is a wealth gap that is huge.
We are dying with untreatable water.
The working class have been hammered.
These are human beings. These are people. What can we do to get that point across?
The constant telling us that we're not doing enough is causing us to explode.
It is not, sir, a matter of opinion anymore. It is clearly exposed.
What do we do? Stand up, fight back!
They can only win by dividing America.
We know that the way things are working at all.
That's right.
If you just keep pushing, if you just keep trying, if you refuse to let the nightmares have the last say, eventually the dawn will break, the sun will come out, and you will be in a brand new day.
If there's no struggle, there can be no progress.
I came to Pinellas County because of a disturbing trend in the schools here. But while canvassing the community, civil rights attorney Amir Whitaker has come across something else that he thinks might be connected to the academic failure in South St. Pete.
A couple weeks ago, through our outreach and canvassing, we located 2 students who were arrested for having a lunchroom fight for disorderly conduct. And they went to county jail.
Did they stay in that jail overnight?
Oh, yeah. And not only that, but we found out they're using pepper spray on the kids, mace on the kids. So, yeah, that adds
They maced the kids at school?
Multiple children is part of this. So we requested everything in their file.
Maced in the school and marked with criminal charges that will follow them for the rest of their lives. For a lunchroom fight.
Here to pick up records? Okay.
Now, I worked as a public high school teacher in Philadelphia. I know how hard it can be to run a classroom full of teenagers. But I cannot understand a school treating what sounds like an ordinary disciplinary issue as a serious crime. I'm hoping to find some answers in the arrest records.
Awesome, the records. Thank you. All right, thank you, ma'am.
But the school board failed to include them among the hundreds of pages of files they handed over to Amir. As Amir and I begin to look deeper, it seems like this case might be part of a pattern. But what does it have to do with the failure of the schools to educate their black students? Amir and I set up a meeting at a local church with students and parents to talk about school discipline in Pinellas County. You know, we're here to examine what's happening in Pinellas County, right? So we want to hear from you all directly and use the platform to hear your voices, your stories, what it's really like being a parent for kids that, you know, sending them off to school every day.
I'm from Broward County. I moved here in July, and Tyler has been suspended here 4 times, and school started in August. It is now only, April? Right. And then when he's in school, he spent most of the time in internal suspension. I don't know how many days he's actually been in the classroom. And the things that they're sending him out of school for are things like just being disruptive, talking, making jokes, and just being extremely playful.
Sounds normal.
You're right, the normal stuff that we used to do in school.
Not okay, but
it's not okay, but...
So I basically got kicked out. But like at my new school, they'll take you straight to jail. Today,
what school is this?
Yeah, probably secondary. And like, you're not even at alternative school. It's like almost at every school. The first resort is for the child to get a juvenile charge for something that's not that much.
Tyler isn't alone. Beginning in elementary school, where we hear stories of suspensions and expulsions for apparently minor offenses, and continuing through high school, where handcuffs, pepper spray, and arrests seem to be routine. Black children are being taken out of the classroom, and they're ending up in the criminal justice system.
I would have never came here if I would have known it was like this.
In communities across the American heartland, prescription pills and heroin are destroying lives. These are places middle-class America has long thought of as havens safe from the reach of drugs. But now this is no longer true. White America is dying. Our nation's leaders, long indifferent to the price paid by communities of color during the decades of the drug war, are slowly waking to this crisis. But as I delve deeper into the reporting, I can see that in some places, a terrible price has already been paid. With perhaps more overdose deaths than anywhere else in America, few communities have suffered like Dayton, Ohio. Dayton is my destination.
My ex-wife was an addict. My stepson died from a heroin overdose. My nephew died 6 months ago from a heroin overdose. And my son died 75 days ago from a heroin overdose. He died the day after Christmas. Jesus. Alone in his house. There's not a day of my life in the past 30 years that addiction hasn't taken its toll on me in one form or another. Thank you.
There's so much I don't understand about this crisis, but the struggle of families I know too well. In Dayton, Families of Addicts has become a place where those caring for addicts come to care for one another. Herself a former addict, Lori Arion founded the group with the aim of ending the shame and hopelessness felt by so many.
There is a lot of work that needs to be done, and it is going to take more than us just talking about it. We need to figure out what to do as a community.
We have people that are seeking recovery. We have people that are in recovery and families. And we all come together to help each other.
My cousin, none of us knew anything. We didn't know the beginnings of, we didn't know the first step.
You become really knowledgeable.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so we all become knowledgeable together. But at the end of the day, the addict needs to want to get better. Does anybody have any kind of progress that they would like a milestone for today?
My name is Kevin, I'm an addict. Okay, so I got 105 days clean today. Through this whole thing, it's been really rough. I've put my family through a lot, and I just wanted to tell my sisters that I love you.
It's clear that Dayton's families are paying a terrible price in the epidemic, but Lori tells me that Dayton as a whole is in crisis. The epidemic's death toll in 2016 is headed towards record levels. Gun violence in Dayton is reaching the kind of levels seen to the north in Chicago. I've only been here a day, and I can already feel the city's suffering. Lori tells me that I can't understand this crisis without visiting the place where so many of Dayton's addicts eventually find themselves, the Montgomery County Jail.
I'm on a mission to find out about the lives of undocumented immigrants. And I've come to the Rio Grande Valley in Texas because I've heard that more migrants come through here than anywhere else. They're often fleeing violence in their home countries and travel hundreds or even thousands of miles before they get to the Rio Grande River, the last barrier to the United States. Many are caught by the Border Patrol and thrown into immigration detention, private prisons run for profit, like this one in Karnes, Texas. Mothers and children can be held here for weeks and months before being released, with orders to appear before a judge and bracelets on their ankles. Some end up in border towns like McAllen, Texas, and sanctuaries like the Sacred Heart Catholic Church.
815, 815. Aquí está su boleto.
Cepillas para ustedes. Sister Norma Pimentel runs the sanctuary and introduces me to a family from Honduras, one of the most dangerous countries for women.
¿Querías venir a los Estados Unidos antes que...?
No. Y un riesgo para todos y para mis hijos, porque si vengo huyendo de mi país, ¿verdad? Me encontré con algo más peor en México. Caemos en manos de cárteles. Nos secuestraron y nos tuvieron en una casa, secuestrado por 2 semanas por ahí así. Mi familia tuvo que pagar casi $15,000 por ahí. Y ahí seguimos el camino, nosotros.
¿Y dónde está tu esposo?
No lo volvimos a ver porque nos separaron, desde que nos agarró migración. Nosotros no sabemos nada de él.
¿Cuándo te pusieron la ankle bracelet? Ayer.
Sí.
Sister Norma tells me nearly all the families have been through a journey marked by kidnapping, extortion, and getting separated from each other, which makes me wonder.
Y si el viaje es tan duro, ¿por qué lo hiciste?
No se puede vivir en el país. Ocupan a los pandilleros para que ellos se dediquen a traficar la droga. Entonces, en el caso mío fue en mi casa. En mi casa ya lo habían ocupado para esconder la droga. Entonces, sin autoridad mía. A ella la estaba un marero, la estaba acosando sexualmente.
Sí, el muchacho era el que cuidaba ahí como el jefe y yo no les pagaba bola. Entonces ellos me acosaban sexualmente.
Mi esposo llegó y se peleó con ellos. Entonces nos dijo 24 horas para que te vayas, si no nos matamos. Entonces dejamos abandonado todo ya y nos venimos. Así.
En mi país ya no quiero regresar. Si supieran cómo es Honduras. Horrible. La muchacha, si no nos juntamos con ellos, nos matan. Nosotros no se meten a la casa o nos roban. No nos violan.
Gracias, Jenny.
Seeing this family is like looking in a distorting mirror. This could be me if my parents had never left Honduras.
Honduras, Guatemala, Salvador, they now have some of the highest murder rates in the world, and nobody is prosecuted for it.
I've come to talk to attorney Jennifer Harbury because she has seen the roots of violence in Central America. Harbury has always been a lion for human rights. She spent the 80s and 90s witnessing the dirty war in Guatemala. A war that killed more than 200,000 people.
Massacres, questions are surfacing about U.S. support for the Guatemalan military.
Now in Texas, she's representing people like that family I met at Sacred Heart. Desperate people facing deportation. She sees a connection between her past and present because, she says, the dirty wars in Central America never really ended.
We're sending people back to highly dangerous situations in Honduras, Salvador, and Guatemala. These people are in danger of being killed, tortured, or dragged into de facto slavery by the narcotráfico drug lords in those countries. Yet when they get here, we choose to pretend that none of those dangers really exist and to throw them back.
So what about people who say, well, that's not our problem? Why don't the governments in those countries deal with it?
The United States actually played a key role in backing and arming and funding military death squads, even though we knew that they were carrying out those systemic human rights abuses. That kind of collaboration is allowing these people to continue the incredible kinds of torture, rape, femicide, brutalization that they did all through the dirty wars. These are human beings coming across, and they are refugees fleeing terrible danger.
When I was a kid, schools rarely employed police officers. But today, the internet is full of graphic videos of police beating students.
Go home! Get the... Stop! Hey!
64% of U.S. high schools now have uniformed police working as school resource officers, or SROs. But in schools where at least half of the population is non-white or high poverty, the numbers are much higher. The Pinellas County School Board runs its own police force, headed by Chief Stelgis. After trying to arrange an interview for months, I finally get him on the phone after hours. Hey, Chief Stelgis. Good evening. This is Jesse Williams calling. I was really hoping that we could find a time to talk. Stelgis won't go on record, but he agrees to set up a meeting for me with a school resource officer who works in Campbell Park, one of the 5 failing elementary schools.
The thing about it is, as a school resource officer, you have to have a love and desire to work with youth.
So on your belt today, you have a gun, you have what, some kind of mace, same things you would have on the street?
Yes. We have the same equipment.
You do?
That a regular officer has that's on the streets. I don't use the taser or the spray, not on an elementary kid.
How do you determine what warrants handcuffs and arrests?
We're not going to be called unless it's a criminal violation. If you hear, okay, Johnny was doing this and that, and then you get into it and say, well, that's not a criminal violation, then you might say, hey, Johnny, you need to just calm down, need to do what you got to do and move forward. 9 times out of 10, it's not a criminal violation. It's very seldom you see a child in elementary school getting a criminal charge.
Mike Hawkins is one of only 2 black officers on Chief Stelgis' force. And it's hard to see how the discipline policies that he describes could result in hundreds of arrests a year.
I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I just want to ask you just kind of about these numbers, because these are just school arrest numbers. I'm going to show you. These are just Southern Poverty Law Center numbers. Pinellas is third in the state in disproportionately arresting black children. 3 times as many students are arrested for disorderly conduct in Pinellas than in Miami. And Miami has 3 times the amount of students. That's pretty alarming. Is that fair to say? Does that sound to you like it's working or like it's not working?
Oh, that's alarming. Listen to the numbers.
Yeah.
It's not fair to hold me with a lot of that data.
Well, nobody's holding Officer Hawkins for all that data. We try to talk to SROs, and they only gave us Officer Hawkins, which I find curious to begin with.
The question should have been to a supervisor who knows more about the stats. They're fair to get to me. Stuff that you read to me.
Supervisors seem to want us to talk to you instead.
I can't answer why. But each agency has their own supervisor to watch and see what these officers are doing. And if they're not doing it, that's between them and their agency. I know what I'm doing.
Do you think you're representative of the SRO community in this area?
I feel I'm a representative of myself. As a product of this neighborhood we're in right here. I grew up in here.
Okay.
I went to Melrose Elementary. I'm from this neighborhood. Right. I'm going to continue to be in this neighborhood, and I'm going to do all I can. But I'm not going to be a token. I'm not here speaking as a token.
What would that mean?
That means that I was picked because of the color of my skin to speak to y'all.
At the Montgomery County Jail in downtown Dayton, I meet Sheriff Phil Plummer. As the Montgomery County Sheriff, Plummer is responsible for the 25,000 inmates who stream through the jail each year. Plummer tells me that most of the addicts here have seen the inside of his jail many times, and that they're mostly picked up for theft and prostitution, crimes committed to support their addictions.
So what percentage of the people that are in here right now have a heroin problem, and that's why they're in here?
I would say 50%.
50%?
Yeah, our female population is climbing every day.
Plummer tells me that the jail has become the default detox center for Dayton. Inmates get no special medical care. They face the pain of withdrawal on their own. I asked Plummer to introduce me to some of his female inmates. I want to hear from them how their addictions began. Maybe in their stories I'll find some of the answers I'm looking for.
Ladies, how's everything going? Considering, pretty good.
As we talk, it becomes clear that for many of these women, a loved one helped set them on the path to addiction.
I found out my mom was using, and I was around her one day when she was shooting it up, and I just asked her if I could try it, and went like this, and she did it. She was the first person to stick a needle in my arm. You know, moms usually give their kids chicken noodle soup, but my mom would go out there and get me heroin.
How did your mom get into it?
Prescription pills, and they became too expensive or hard to find, and I'm 22. I don't have my GED. I didn't graduate from high school. I've lost everything and everybody that I loved. I don't have anything.
I introduced by my boyfriend. It just started out recreational. Before I knew it, I was a full-blown addict. My husband has lifelong health issues, and then he couldn't get his painkillers, so he went and got heroin. I'm probably on the verge of losing 2 of my children. And I'm in here and can't do a damn thing about it. I have 4 kids. I hadn't seen them in 6 months, and their dad finally brought them to see me last week here. And my 10-year-old daughter looked at me and said, "I thought you were dead in a ditch." My youngest children just don't understand. For them, everything is just scary. So that's rough, and that's something that not only I have to deal with, but they have to live with. I've done that to them.
When I asked Plummer about the connection between pills and heroin mentioned by some of the women, he arranges for me to talk to another prisoner, Jason Lyle.
So I want heroin right now. Where do I go out there?
Go out here, take a left, and go up the street to the first gas station and stand there, and you'll probably get something within 5 minutes.
How did you wind up doing heroin?
I was 16, had an accident, broke my leg, started getting prescribed painkillers pretty heavily.
And at that moment when they gave it to you, you really felt like this is going to be a problem?
Yeah.
You didn't call them up and say, I'm not in any pain anymore. I probably don't need any more of this. Right?
No, he just kept giving them, I kept taking them. Once he took me off of them, I began to buy them from the street.
Mm-hmm.
Then I got introduced to someone who had stronger pain medicine, which was Oxycontin.
Mm-hmm.
So I started doing those. And the guy that I was getting them from, he died, so there was no more of those around, and that's where heroin came into the picture. That's when it kind of blew out of control. I mean, it starts with the doctor, and then, you know, it ultimately ends with you trying to fix your addiction that you've let yourself get, pretty much, you know.
After my visit to the jail, the source of this epidemic is becoming clear. I see that addiction for the women prisoners and Jason Lyle had a common beginning.
Even if migrants make it into Texas, their ordeal is far from over. Most want to go north to big cities like Houston, where work and family may be waiting. But far from the border, as many as 100 miles inside the United States, there are U.S. Border Patrol checkpoints that stop the migrants in their tracks.
Is this a border? Is this the border with Mexico?
The Immigration and Naturalization Act authorizes Border Patrol agents to conduct immigration inspections interior of the United States within 100 air miles of the border. Okay? Everybody's U.S. citizens? Okay. Sir, you're a U.S. citizen?
Yes.
Ma'am?
I am a U.S. citizen, yes.
Okay.
But non-citizens need to avoid the checkpoint and the certainty of deportation. So they go around it, trying to cross the unforgiving terrain on foot. This is the guy who has to deal with all those migrants trying to get around the checkpoint.
So when you're driving out here, are you constantly looking for people?
You're looking for any element that doesn't appear to be the norm. Okay. You see this right here?
Yeah.
Those were done so they can cross over. And it can get real bad in a hurry. This is what they got to put up with, just walking it. And then you got the terrain. It's thick. It makes it harsh, and especially if you don't have enough water, a lot of supplies that you need to keep yourself going.
Because he's law enforcement, Chief Martinez is duty-bound to apprehend the migrants. But I sense that he's torn about that, since he has a lot of sympathy for them, too.
How hot does it get?
In the summer months, we run about 105. Wow. So it varies as to what could happen to them while they're walking. And the thing is, though, once they get sick, they don't know where they're at. And they just... It doesn't take us long to find a body here. And for every one body we found, we're probably missing 5.
By Chief Martinez's calculations, thousands of bodies are still out in the brush, since about 400 have been found just in the past 5 years. That's in Brooks County, inside the United States, not on the border. And Chief Martinez says that with all those deaths, he and his staff have the gruesome task of making a record of every corpse.
So these are pictures from the last year?
Yes, from 2015.
It says here that this is a body you found out there.
He was found along the fence line.
And will they try to identify who these people were, or is that impossible?
We've been able to identify some of them, in fact.
Are they all men?
No. They're men, they're women, they're young adults, they're youth, probably as young as 10 at times. They'll do whatever they can just to go make ends meet. He died in the ambulance.
Honestly, when I set out to explore the topic of immigration, I didn't bargain for this. I didn't expect to encounter this many people dying inside our own country.
This is a death that you don't want. You know you're dying. Who's going to hear you? Out in the middle of nowhere, animals around you waiting for you to expire so they can go tear you up. It's senseless.
Every year, hundreds of kids are arrested in Pinellas County schools. Children as young as 6 years old are handcuffed, interrogated by armed officers without their parents present, loaded into the back of a police cruiser while the whole school watches, and then taken here to Pinellas County Jail. Here, chances are, their case will be taken up by a team of 20 public defenders, led by Bob Dillinger.
I guess we should start with maybe just the broad question, is the criminal justice system here in Pinellas failing these kids?
Well, when I started out, I was in juvenile.
Okay.
And it was very frustrating to say this child needs help. If he doesn't get help, he's going to be in serious trouble down the road. And then I went up the ladder and became a felony lawyer, and lo and behold, I've got this kid who's looking at life in prison that I kept saying he needs help, and he never got it. The system didn't provide it, and now he's doing life in prison when we could have avoided it.
When kids come to you, by the time they get to you and they've waived their Miranda rights, but they're children, how does that work?
We keep fighting that. We keep losing it on the appellate level. We think the parents should be there.
Right.
Before their child makes a decision that could impact that child for a long time, they should be able to talk to their parents.
Yeah, we don't allow minors to make a lot of decisions, but we allow them to waive rights that they can't possibly comprehend.
Right. They can't sign a contract, they couldn't buy a car, but they can waive a right and talk about a crime that could put them in prison for the rest of their life.
Yeah. I found it pretty alarming that by and large, white students are not being arrested at the rates that their black counterparts are for a range of other charges for disorderly conduct, for example.
Yeah, there's a racial disparity. We have an overpopulation of minorities in both systems, the juvenile and the adult system. We had a child arrested who was 6 years old for disorderly conduct, and they put both hands into one handcuff and brought him out to the detention center. You don't handcuff a 6-year-old.
Right. And you think about school, you think that's a track towards employment, right? That's kind of the
Our
selling
schools
point.
were the track to prison. We're ruining these kids' lives.
I have data showing that Pinellas County schools have one of the highest arrest rates for black students in the state. I've spoken with the students who told me about their encounters with law enforcement. But after months of trying, I still haven't been able to get a hold of the school's arrest records. The school board told me to talk to the sheriff, but he won't speak with me. Then, I finally get a call from a contact at his office. It's worse than I even imagined. Disorderly conduct for knocking over a trash can. Criminal mischief for writing on a bathroom wall. Felony battery for bumping into an administrator's shoulder. Dozens of children who'd been pepper sprayed. A few of the kids are white, but most are black and are identified by the shade of their skin. Seriously, light, medium, or dark. I need to talk to someone. Chief Stelgis still refuses to meet with me, but I managed to track down the most powerful law enforcement official in the county. No one is charged with a crime here without the approval of State's Attorney Bernie McCabe's office.
Mr. McCabe, sir, how are you?
Okay.
Jesse Williams. Do you think that, in general, the criminal justice system in Pinellas is failing the kids?
Well, you'd have to ask the police, I guess.
You don't have access to their arrest records?
I don't pay attention to, I don't look at the arrest records of those cases like my
So-
juvenile division does. I have 165 lawyers.
Sure. But your offices have a policy as to how to charge juveniles, right?
We're investigating cases every day, looking at what's appropriate to divert, what's not appropriate to divert, and making decisions.
So there's diversion, but there's also what charges you want to, how you want to consider it,
instance,
and they come into your
if
office.
it's a disrupting school function,
Great.
should we charge them with the felony of disrupting school function or the misdemeanor of disorderly conduct?
Or do you have to charge them?
No, we don't have to charge them. But if there's a case there, would it be responsible to just ignore it?
Would it be responsible to charge every single kid that comes to your office?
Don't charge
just because,
every single kid.
Well, we have stacks and stacks of arrest records for children that are getting arrested for things that happen in school that I remember as being school scuffles or mischief at school, right?
Well,
and you would as well.
Back when I was in school,
Yeah.
we had corporal punishment, and I got paddled.
Sure. But you didn't get a charge that follows you till you were 35 years old.
No.
Okay, so if you're obviously aware of the alarming amount of arrests for kids in the school system, in this particular area, in this particular state, is that something in the water? What do we attribute that to? I mean, you're saying that you guys are working so hard to
There's a
divert.
cultural aspect to it that I don't understand. So,
What's that? There's a cultural aspect to the data around arrests?
no, what's going on in the schools that I don't understand?
Whose culture is that?
Societal culture.
So the
culture in Pinellas County. I don't know.
Right, the culture of the people getting arrested.
I just say there's a cultural factor that I don't understand.
And to that point, we're trying to understand the culture of this office,
I'm
right?
not a social worker, I'm a prosecutor. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
What future is school preparing for these kids, really? Odds are it's not teaching them how to read at grade level.
Okay, let's go.
It's not putting them on a path to college or a real job. It might not even graduate them with a high school diploma. But it sure can send them to jail for a food fight. In Pinellas County, Florida, failing schools and high arrest rates go hand in hand.
I asked Sheriff Plummer for an expert on addiction, and he tells me to talk to Keith Vukasinovich, the director of a new treatment center currently under construction in one of Dayton's hardest-hit neighborhoods.
So explain that chain of events of how that works from being prescribed a medication to ending up, on heroin.
Well, what typically happens is somebody gets prescribed drugs for an injury, surgery. The problem is that as you take opioids for any amount of time, you start to build up a tolerance. See, one Percodan got it for you today. Maybe a week from now, it's 2. When that becomes insufficient, they start injecting the prescribed drug. When even that becomes insufficient, because prescription drugs cost way more on the street than heroin. They transitioned at some point to heroin. So heroin was introduced indirectly from one's use of pain medication. Because of the fact that most people have a very trusting relationship with their family doctors, if the doctor prescribed it, it must be okay. Where this whole trust-based relationship fell off of the rails was when drug companies were telling doctors, oh, this is safe, go ahead, you can prescribe it. No, it's not addictive. And docs said, okay. And it was like open season because suddenly we started giving out pain meds. And to this day, the United States still consumes 90% of the hydrocodone produced in the whole world. We're doing something wrong here. We're 95.
If doctors were prescribing something that they didn't fully understand, it begs the question, what did the pharmaceutical companies know? My research points me to a courthouse in Scioto County, 2 hours south of Dayton. Prosecutor Joe Hale was the first to bring a lawsuit against Purdue Pharma. It's the maker of OxyContin, the prescription opiate which has created more addicts and claimed more lives than any other.
At what point did you start to get involved to try to do something about all of this?
I first got involved as a result of the daughter of a client of mine overdosing on OxyContin. 2 years later, I filed the first lawsuit against Purdue Pharma, first lawsuit in the country. Well, of course, they filed an answer denying negligence, denying liability. All of a sudden, the U.S. Attorney's Office announces that 3 of the Purdue Pharma executives pled guilty to misdemeanor charges, what were referred to as misbranding narcotics, not disclosing the addiction potential. Purdue Pharma was fined $635 million, something like that. Everybody from the U.S. Attorney involved, all these federal government agencies gave these great speeches at the end of the OxyContin epidemic. Baloney. It grew after that. They made up enough money in the next 4 or 5 years to make that $600-some million look like a drop in the bucket.
What do you feel like the consequences should have been?
People should have gone to jail. Even a fool could figure out if you put 40 milligrams or 80 milligrams of pure oxycodone into a pill, the drug-abusing population will eventually figure out you can shoot it up. So Purdue Pharma committed a gross act of negligence.
As it started to seem like there was a problem, did they have any reaction? Were there warnings sent to doctors? Did doctors start to go, okay, this is an issue?
No, in fact, I believe that Purdue Pharma actively tried to suppress that information.
What do you think Purdue Pharma's motivations were and are for making this drug ultimately?
The first year that Purdue Pharma began marketing OxyContin, I believe that their gross sales in OxyContin was $43 million. By 2010, they would surpass $3 billion.
Do you feel like Purdue is in some way not just responsible for the OxyContin epidemic, but responsible ultimately for the heroin epidemic that's going on?
Absolutely.
Right.
There's no doubt in my mind, and the evidence is there.
So what is the solution?
I don't know if there is one.
Purdue has generated sales of more than $35 billion since it released its supposedly addiction-proof painkiller. All the while, year after year, the deaths keep mounting.
Migrants with no papers who are trapped in the Rio Grande Valley have a few stark options. Leave the country, risk death by trying to go around the Border Patrol, or stay put. Today, I'm meeting someone who's chosen to stay. But from what I hear, this choice may end up being just as deadly.
Hola, mucho gusto.
Soy América. Alondra, mucho gusto. Hi. Jackie? I'm America. Nice to meet you.
Yo me di cuenta que tenía una bolita en mi pecho. Me hicieron una biopsia. A la siguiente semana me hablaron de la clínica para decirme que el tumor era canceroso. En una parte de mí decía, ok, si tengo cáncer, que me den quimioterapias, que me den radiaciones, que me hagan lo que me tengan que hacer. No quiero morirme. Mis hijos me necesitan.
Jackie, what was that like when you found out from your mom?
I was in shock. When she told me that, I thought, what was I gonna do if the next day I found out my mom wasn't gonna be by my side? And I was scared. Ya empezamos las quimioterapias en noviembre y diciembre. Fueron 960, me parece, de cada una. Y fueron 4 sesiones.
¿Tuviste que pagar por todo?
Sí, tuvimos que hacer actividades, bingos, rifas, de todo para juntar el dinero.
¿Y no regresaste a limpiar casas?
No, no he podido regresar a trabajar. El doctor me estaba atendiendo con el seguro del condado. Pero 26 de diciembre él ya no iba a trabajar aquí en el centro de cáncer. Otros doctores me podían ver, pero me cobraban más de 500 la consulta.
Wow.
Pues yo no iba a poder pagarlo. Todo lo que fue el mes de enero y de febrero no tuve quimioterapia.
¿Y por qué no fuiste a encontrar otro médico en otra ciudad?
A otra ciudad no puedo ir porque no tengo papeles. Y allá hay muchas ayudas. Me dicen que en Houston, en Galveston y todo eso. Pues, ¿cómo voy?
Porque hay checkpoints.
Hay checkpoints. Sí.
Because she's undocumented, Alondra isn't eligible for Medicaid, even though she's poor and very ill.
¿Piensas en ir a México y tener seguro allá?
No, como ya tengo el diagnóstico de cáncer, no me pueden atender con ningún seguro.
¿No te van a cubrir?
No. Pues es que tengo muchas ganas de vivir. Que pasen los años, de volver a trabajar y verlos crecer. Ella me dice que quiere ser abogada. Y le digo que quiero ver mi abogada en la familia. Y sí, o sea, ver sus hijos, verlos casarse a todos, todo eso me inspira a que yo quiero vivir, quiero seguir adelante, no quiero quedar en esto. Nunca hay que perder la fe, nunca.
The state's attorney told me that the culture in Pinellas County is what gets students arrested in the first place. And he doesn't seem interested in the toll that arrests, overcharging, and jail time are taking on students. The school board is still in denial about its failing, segregated schools. But it feels like things are finally changing here. In the last few weeks alone, the school board has announced a slate of reforms. A federal civil rights investigation has been launched into whether the school district systematically discriminates against black children. And the Tampa Bay Times has won a Pulitzer Prize for their groundbreaking series, which first revealed the crisis within Pinellas County schools. Community pressure, which had been building slowly for years, is starting to break through. I'm going to a massive rally organized by local churches here, called Faith and Action for Strength Together. FAST.
Hey, good to see y'all.
How are you, brother?
Good to see y'all.
Lisa and Tyler are here as well, along with 3,000 of their classmates and fellow parents. For the first time ever, the entire school board has agreed to meet with FAST 3000 members and listen to their demands. For a school board that I'm more used to seeing perched behind their high podiums, denouncing their critics, this is a stunning power reversal.
Will you replace all out-of-school suspensions with a supervised program that has trained staff?
Yes.
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 That's a yes. Will you support a policy change to stop arresting children for disorderly conduct in school?
I will ask our school campus chief of police to eliminate arrests for non-violent disorderly conduct.
I'm sorry, at this time I guess I'm going to have to say no.
No.
Why are you saying that? What's your...
It's really a matter of terminology. It is my opinion that when you use the terminology...
Excuse me, we are talking about non-violent offenses. So will you support a policy change to stop arresting students?
If you're going to put it like that, yes.
That's a yes.
Just weeks after the FAST protest, the Pinellas School Board announced another slate of reforms, and they replaced every one of the principals from the 5 failing schools. Are these victories? Maybe. But an entire decade of damage has already been done here. And it really shouldn't take years of struggle to finally get a school board just to listen, or to finally get a nation to make good on its promise of equal access to a quality education for all of its children.
When I hear stories like Alondra Garcia's, I get sad. And then I get angry. Do the undocumented have any human rights? If so, who's fighting for them?
You've got to get out there with a picket sign and get some action going. And when you put all of those things together, then nonviolence works.
America's most famous farm worker leader, Cesar Chavez, founded La Unión del Pueblo Entero, or LUPE, an activist group dedicated to the idea that low-income immigrants should band together to help themselves. In spring 2016, their cause was DAPA, a federal program to allow undocumented parents to stay in the U.S. The Supreme Court was about to rule.
If we get a decision from the Supreme Court that is not beneficial to our community, we're not going to stop.
And in June, the ruling meant the parents could be deported. For Tanya Chavez, it was a blow and a reason to keep fighting. Chavez works for LUPE and is a community leader. She has 2 master's degrees in business administration and communications. But despite her credentials, she's also trapped in the valley, for she too is undocumented.
I actually didn't really know that there was an actual wall.
All the way, the whole border.
The whole border?
The whole border, from Bronzeville all the way to California.
Oh, to California?
I mean, it cuts through different parts, but yeah, it goes all the way.
Where were you born and raised, and where do you come from?
I was born and raised in Veracruz, Mexico, and then my parents decided to send me and my brother over to the United States to a better place for our education. But when we came into the United States,
we asked for a student visa, and the student visa was denied.
Why?
Because my parents didn't have enough money in the bank. And so for you to be able to acquire a student visa, you need to have thousands of dollars in the bank.
So instead of student visas, Tanya says the kids came on tourist visas. But while she was in college in Texas, Tanya wasn't aware of the difference.
All along, I thought I was documented.
When did you fully understand what it meant to be undocumented?
I found myself caged in the valley. I couldn't go beyond the checkpoint, and I couldn't go back to Mexico.
So people say that if you legalize immigrants who came to this country illegally, then you are rewarding illegal behavior. What is your response to that?
I don't think it's about rewarding individuals. I think it's about allowing them to contribute to the society that they have made their home. It's about allowing them to pay taxes back. It's allowing them to contribute to this economy.
Some people claim the border is wide open, but as I've just become aware, there's already a wall along much of it. I've also learned that the federal government spends more to secure the border than on any other element of law enforcement.
Border Patrol's coming.
Today, we see the Border Patrol everywhere.
Ay, Dios mío. Were they trying to cross?
Yeah.
Ay, pobrecitos. This is when I realized how privileged I am. My heart's beating so hard.
I think for me, every time I read an article or watch a news report or meet a dreamer or see a farm worker, or, I see myself, I see my family, and I just think it only would take a small amount of imagination for any of us to put ourselves in these people's shoes and try and understand that they're people and that they're humans just like us, and that it could very well be us, and that we won the lottery by being born in this country.
On the next America Divided.
And how do you see this issue of anchor babies?
Anyone who's born in the United States is a citizen, period.
There you go, right there.
Give me an idea of the scale of this problem.
Suicide and drug overdoses are going up in tandem.
We have a government operating in bold contrast and opposition to the fundamental values of North Carolina.
How do these people get in power?
Money and politics.